Hello everyone, welcome back. I am here coming to you with what will be my stash tour, which I always tell myself I don't think I have a very big stash, and I think that holds true for my knitting yarn, but as I was like pulling everything out, I'm like, holy shit, I have a lot of yarn. So we'll see how this goes. I have a loose plan, which is, broadly speaking, to go through my knitting yarns, my weaving yarns, and then my fiber stash for things that I want to spin. I don't think I'm going to go through every single individual item in my stash because that would take eons. There's a lot of things that are not particularly special. There's a lot of things that I don't know the origin or source of. Outside of who I got it from. And so I think it's a little bit of a show and tell. I think I'm going to curate the show and tell a bit and definitely highlight things that I feel like are standouts in my stash. But I don't think I'm going to go through every single individual item. I'm not quite framing this as a purge my stash because I purged my stash about a year ago, and I like everything in my stash, with the exception of one subset of items, which I will talk about. But without much further ado, I am gonna jump in. So let us start. I'm gonna start with this bin, which is what I consider to be my specialty yarns, my one-of-a-kinds, my hand-spuns, and things that I have purchased for products or projects in the immediate future. So I'm just going to jump in. So things that might look familiar to you, because I believe I shared this in my 2024 knits. I got a bunch of this Wool Dreamers Mota yarn in this lovely kind of like, I want to say like coffee colored, like cappuccino mocha-y-esque color. And I'm planning on making a Felix pullover with this. So that's the first thing that I see. I got this, I went to Weaver House earlier last year to do a workshop there, and they have a really fun and interesting selection of yarn. So I would suggest, if you're ever in the Philadelphia area, stopping by because it's a really cool shop. And so I was in my like texture era, and so I bought a couple balls of this boucle, which I never thought I would be a boucle kind of girl, but then I was playing around with it with the open reed and thought it looked so cool. And so I got a couple skeins for myself. I also got this beautiful, I believe it's recycled sari silk ribbon almost, which is also really cool on the open reed. If you don't know what the open reed is, it's a reed where you can take off essentially the top rail so you can move your warp threads around. I have a video with me playing around with it, which I can link or insert somewhere. And it looked really cool with like ribbon / tape. And so I got a couple of these for those kinds of projects also. A lot of the yarns in here are my hand spun. So this skein I did in last year's Tour de Fleece. It is Hello Yarn fiber. A lot of my hand spun is Hello Yarn. Pretty much like almost exclusively, like my hand dyed fibers are either, there's like 90% Hello Yarn and like 10% Inglenook and nobody else. But yeah, this is all club fiber. But I think this one is very special because I believe this is all spindle, like hand spindle spun, not wheel spun. So that's kind of cool. I will say these are like not really, this is sort of my colors. It's a little bit pale slash unsaturated for me. I have so much of it. This is like, I believe I got like 650 yards out of the 4-ounce braid, and I don't have plans for it. I really like spinning to spin. And if I find, you know, a home for it in weaving or knitting, then so be it. But yeah, these were, I think, the same colorway, but one I spun fractal, and this one I chain plied. This was one of my very first spindle yarns, and it is so fine. It's kind of crazy. Definitely underspun, or there's not enough ply twist, and it definitely it might wake up if I give it a bath. But I did, this was a very fun colorway to spin, just like not really my colors to wear. Yeah, these were my first ever yarns that I spun, ever. Starting with a Turkish spindle. These were from Neighborhood Fiber Co. Paul Worth. There were 2 different colorways. And yeah, I don't have plans for this either, but it's kind of like I feel like it's special to keep the first skeins you've spun. So that's that. Trying to think of other standouts in here. This was another bat that I spun recently. I used it to make a weaving for my sister. And this was just kind of leftover. It was all merino. These 2 were the first yarns that I spun on a wheel. I did a combo spin. And I love the colors. I did learn that, you know, especially like my first few wheel spun yarns were really, it looks good. Like, it certainly looks good, but it's not nice to knit with, in that they're like a heavy, it's like a heavy yarn. Like, it's worsted weight, but I got very little yardage because I think I was just like packing the fiber in there. So it's very dense yarn, which I personally don't like. I love a light, squishy, lofty yarn. But it is very beautiful to look at. I think this would make a nice like hat or like cowl or something, because there's not very much of it. But it's like, I felt this way when I was actually working with the Green Mountain Spinnery yarn to knit this sweater, with like yarns that are very densely spun, and it like hurts my hands. I don't know if anyone else feels that way, but I feel that way. I think I have like a few random skeins. This is kind of also where like all my whole leftover skeins from like sweater quantities go to dye. And so this is just like Cascade 220. This is the same yarn here that I have left over. The last thing that I want to show in here, I think, is there's all of these little cakes of fiber. 14 of them, to be exact. And it is from, they are from my Tour de Fleece spin of 2023, I believe, either 2022 or 2023. It was a Hello Yarn patchwork kit that I blended into gradient bats, so 14 different 1-ounce gradient bats. And if you have seen my weaving in the background of my 2024 knits video, I used all of those yarns in that overshot, and this is what's left over. I had about 100 yards of each, and I believe I only used about 35 yards of each cake for that wall hanging. And so I have still plenty to make like another couple sizable wall hangings, and so I'm holding on to them because they're so precious to me, and that's been my favorite spinning project to date. And I love making like blended bats for like heathered yarns. I think they're so pretty. And yeah, so that is my specialty yarns, I'll say, for knitting. as you can see, I've got a lot of miscellaneous stuff. On hand, I only have one sweater quantity of yarn pretty much. Actually, that reminds me, I do have another sweater quantity of yarn. Please hold. So I'm remembering, okay, that I own these, which is, so I'm pretty sure like webs slash, is it not yarn.com? But Webs, the big online yarn retailer. I don't buy from them very often, if ever. Like I go there for if I need like inexpensive commercial yarn. Like I work with Cascade 220 fingering a lot. It's probably my favorite non-superwash fingering yarn. I don't know if that's crazy to say, but it's true. And so like I might go there to buy my Cascade 220 fingering. And many years ago, I saw that they were having like a closeout sale on this yarn that they're discontinuing, which is a Highland fingering from Cloudborne Fibers. And I think it was like $5 for this 100-gram skein, which is a very good deal, I'll say. So I think I bought like something crazy, like 9 of them. I've made a couple sweaters out of them. At this point, I've made one of my Easy One sweaters by Joji Locatelli is made of this. I also have a Astragal pullover made of this. And I still have like easily another sweater quantity here. But my only qualm with this yarn is that it pills like none other. It's like really not a very durable yarn, especially for like sweaters that I wear a lot and often. And so not ideal. I do think I might try to dye these a different color because like, frankly, if I'm making a fingering weight sweater, it's more often than not going to be another Easy One, but I don't need another Easy One in this color. And so I might try dyeing it a more fun color. But I don't mind the pilling. Like I have a little sweater shaver that I got from the thrift store and it does the job for me, but perhaps not the highest quality. Perhaps that is why this yarn is discontinued, but you live and you learn. And for $5 a pop, you know, I'm not upset about it. So that is my specialty yarn / sweater quantities. The last of the knitting yarns that I want to share is this collection here, which is a never-ending, I gotta say. It's a sweater quantity that I've been working on spinning for easily 2.5 years. I got about a pound of processed Jacob fleece. It was already, I think it's technically in a roving. Actually, I have some here. It looked like this. Okay, first of all, I feel like this woman gave me more than a pound because I am still working on this. So this is how much I've already gotten. And I'm doing like a chain, it's like a fingering weight. It's like maybe a light sport, like 3-ply yarn. And I have this many skeins of them, which is so much. And I still have all of this left to spin. I think this is my last bit. And like, I don't know what about it that is taking me forever. I think I just get bored and it's like really monotonous for me to spin. I've been spinning this long draw on my Saxony wheel. It's the project that's always on there. But it's just never ending. And I don't have any plans for this. I also fear that this is a yarn that's gonna pill a lot, just because it's everything about it is like a woolen prep and it's gonna be probably so warm, but it's not giving so durable. And so I don't know what I'm gonna do with it, but I'm just spinning it. I don't know when I'm gonna get to finishing this. We'll see. But I think that is the last of the knitting yarns. Okay, I lied. That's not the last of the knitting yarns. I have a bunch of Nutiden that I have frankly, no idea what I'm gonna do with. So this was my first Nutiden purchase. I got this dark chocolate brown. And this was definitely 100% like a FOMO purchase where like everybody was talking about unspun yarn, everybody was talking about Nutiden, and I was like, I gotta get my hands on it. And do I regret it? Yeah, considering that it's been like years and I haven't done anything with this. I think I don't have plans on destashing things very heavily because I don't have a lot that I feel like it's gonna like rake in a lot of money. This is something I would consider destashing, just because I haven't touched them. And I know other people out there in the world who like this more than I do. But ultimately not for me. I think I will continue holding on to it for however long, but I like easily have like a sweater's quantity of it. But it's just like, I can't work with it by itself because it breaks, and then I have to get mohair, and mohair is like not inexpensive. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. I think like a dark brown sweater would be nice, and is not something that I have in my wardrobe currently. And I am, as I mentioned, in my brown era. So perhaps I will make use of this. They also sent me a sample of this pink with that brown, and I think it's a nice pink and could be a nice accent color together, but not sure. And then of course I have a few balls of green, also unspun, they're all held together double, because this was from, I had started making I think a good cigar cardigan with the Nutiden held double, and I was just like, I'm not gonna wear this. I don't like working on this, so I frogged it. Frogging Nutiden, cannot recommend, not for the faint of heart. And so I just have a few balls like this. It might make like a nice, like small scarf or something, but I think I want to believe in my heart that this is all that I have left, because the rest I used to make that season sweater for my partner. But there's a part of me that fears I have more laying around somewhere that will become apparent to me as I start packing, but I don't think it's here with me in my stash. Okay, now that is the end of the knitting yarns, I promise. Let's talk weaving yarn. I've got a lot of it. I've got a disproportionate amount of weaving yarn for the amount that I actually weave, which is not very much. Last year I completed perhaps no, I'm not giving myself enough credit. I think last year I completed maybe 5 projects, which is not that many, considering that like cumulatively those projects probably didn't take me, like I probably didn't spend more than 2 weeks weaving last year. But I would say that 80% of my stash is weaving yarn. By design, I wouldn't say by design, but by reality. And it's just how the chips fell. A big part of this is because I have a dear friend who lives in Montreal. And whenever I go to Montreal, which has not been that many times, I'll say, we like to do a little road trip to the Maurice Brossard fleece. I think it's just a fille because it's sons, not fils as in daughters. Don't come after me for my French. And so we go to they have a basically like factory store in Quebec City, or I think it's technically Quebec City. The town is Plessisville, or I don't know if it's Plessisville, but in my head I read it Plessisville. And I kind of go ham because you essentially are getting them at wholesale prices because I think here, right, you're getting a half-pound cone of 8.2, 8.4 cotton for between like $9 and $11. There, first, right, the US dollar is advantageous in Canada. And so there's that benefit. The other thing is with the wholesale prices, like I have, this isn't here, but I have like 10 half-pound cones of just like 8.2 cotton, because that is my preferred warp thread. Yeah, my preferred warp thread. And I think each one is like 4 CAD, maybe 450 CAD. Yeah, and same with like all of these 8.4 cottons are maybe like 550 CAD. I don't remember the prices off the top of my head, but it's like almost half. It's like 50 to 70. It's like 50 to like 70% the retail cost that it is to buy it in the States from a retailer. And so the first time I went ham, and I was like also newly weaving, and what I gotta say is that I betrayed myself and my philosophy in that I like to approach buying yarn with having a specific project and plan in mind for that yarn. I do not like retrofitting yarn to a project because I just find that I'm usually like just not happy with what my options are. And weaving is a little bit more complicated because you are the master of your own design when it comes to weaving, and there's just like, of course there's patterns, but there's so many different sets, so many different variables that like you can kind of make, I mean, I don't know if this is actually true. I'm like still a very novice weaver, but like you can kind of make any pattern work with any yarn as long as like your set is right. And I think that's something I've come to understand as I've woven more, but that is not something I understood when I went to Maurice Brassard and Sons for the first time. And so what I tried to do is like, well, I'm just gonna get cottons that I think I'll use eventually. And so that was a lot of 8.2, a lot of 8.4 cotton. And I did get to make like I made a really nice color gamp. So I was buying yarns that I was like, I'm pretty sure I can like figure out what to do with this, whether it's just warp, whether I'm just doing plain weave, dish towels, cotton towels, whatever. Like, I don't think I can go wrong with 8.2, 8.4 cotton. And I think for the most part has held true. But then there were these wools. What were they called? Laine peignée. I think they're just like little worsted wools. And the colors are so pretty. So pretty. So my speed. But they're like $2.20, or I guess like maybe conventionally in the States, 22 yarns, which is a lot finer than anything that I am currently accustomed to working with. And I had like these grand plans in my head that I was gonna like weave fabric and sew with it. And I gotta say, none of that has happened yet. And I just feel like very daunted at what the set might be for a 220 wool. So if anyone has any thoughts, suggestions, advice on like how to best approach this, like my reeds I think I have up to like a 12 dent reed, but I don't have like a 24 dent reed, which like I fear you might need for a yarn this fine. But I'm holding on to it until I figure out exactly what it is that I'm gonna do with these, because I do think they're so pretty. I have a few other commercial yarn items that I thought is noteworthy. So this is Gist Mallow, which is a cotton slub yarn, which means it's not super uniform it's like uniform in weight, but it kind of has it's almost like thick and thin sometimes. And I really like this for things that you can wash. And so I've used this yarn before to make a set of placemats, and I hope to use more of this yarn to make placemats for myself. as well as a matching table runner. Yeah. I think this is nice, like a nice substitute for 8/4. I would say it's more of a substitute for 8/4 cotton than 8/2. Yeah, I stand by that. And then of course, as you know me, I am an overshot girly through and through. And so with the mallow yarn is frankly quite expensive. I think it's like $32 a cone. And I was like, frankly, I can't buy enough for that plus tabby weft and expect to not lose an arm and a leg in the process, to pay an arm and a leg in the process. And so I got some of this Barocco remix yarn, which is a recycled yarn, and I found that it's very nice tabby weft for this if you're using this as warp. And so what I've done in the past is like this will be my warp yarn, and then this will be my tabby weft, and then I'll use something that is 2 or 3 times the weight of this as the pattern weft, and that's likely what I'll do for a future placemat table runner project with this. Another pro tip, not related to stash, especially if you're storing things in cakes without their original labels. Not that you should. People have opinions about whether or not you should store things in cakes. I try not to. I only cake things up when I'm about to use it. But that's kind of how the chips fell for these. And so one thing you can do, I'm not claiming this is my own tip, I think I saw this maybe from Andrea Mowry, is you take the label, the yarn label, you wrap it around the spoke, I guess, of your yarn winder, the barrel where your yarn wraps around. And so then when you pull the cake off, the label is nice and neatly inside the center of the cake. And so that has saved me at least this many times when trying to remember what this stuff was. I knew this was just mallow, but I could not remember what this was. And then lo and behold, the label's in there. So, that's it for my like readily available commercial weaving yarn. Next, I just wanted to dive into this tote, which is, it might look familiar to you if you've seen my croak brag video. And it is all of this very beautiful rug yarn, which I got from Weaver House. They were selling, these are mill ends from I think like a fancy rug weaving company. And so they were selling them in 5-pound skeins as well as cones that are about 1 pound. And so I got 1 5-pound skein of just like this white, which I think is so beautiful and lovely, and it's going to make a lovely background color for a rug, hence why I got so much. I also got a bunch of these different dyed colors in what I like to think of as like muted spring colors. Very much so, feels like a light and refreshing, and I just think will make such a nice rug, and I hope to do that one day. As I learned in my croak brag video, the baby wolf is really not suited for croak brag or for anything that needs really high warp tension and really hard beading. So I think I gotta save it for my loom craft, but I'm intimidated by my loom craft. Don't know when I'm gonna put this on, but it is definitely, that is what this yarn is for, and I will get to it one day. Famous last words, but alas. So that's that. And then the last tote. It's my tote of laments and regrets. I'll say that much. So I have this tote of yarn, plus a little bit more that's in back here, of these random cones of primarily wool. And I did not spend any money on these. Well, technically I did, in that I bought my Glamocra standard from this lovely woman who was winding down her weaving practice. And what I did not notice till I got home and started like unpacking all of this yarn, is that it had some pretty serious carpet beetle problems, which I am no stranger to, because I have had carpet beetle issues while living in this house. But it was infested. And so first I quarantined it, and then I baked it. I know some people have different philosophies on how to get rid of pests. And usually it's like a combo of freezing and baking and freezing and putting in like a hot car or whatever. But I have found, first, I do not know who has the freezer space for all of this. I certainly did not then and do not now. And so what I did was I just put these all on a few baking sheets. They took turns in the oven at about 200, I think I did about 200 degrees for 10 to 15 minutes and then pulled them out. And trigger warning if you're squeamish about bugs. Like some of the skeins, like there were carpet beetles physically on them, like the larva, and others didn't. And I was like, but I'm just like, when you see one, there's got to be more. And so sometimes I would like put them on the tray and wouldn't see any of them with my eyes. But when you're pulling them out, like the larvae, I guess, like come to the surface because I guess they're like, I don't know, trying to escape, you know? And it was unsightly. So where does that leave me with this bin? It leaves me with a bunch of yarn that I don't know what to do with, because I've like killed the carpet beetles and the carpet beetle larva doesn't change the fact that they have done damage to a significant portion of these yarns. Like this doesn't even capture like the yarns that I just like discarded and like wrote off as total losses. These are yarns that I thought like I could salvage or just like still had a significant amount left on the cone. But like I know that once I go to like wind a warp with these or even wind like my bobbins with these, like there's probably going to be breakage and there's probably going to be structural integrity issues. And I don't know what to do. Because I know that I will find that personally very frustrating to work with. But I also don't want to waste this yarn or like throw it away, or I can't in good conscience like give this to anyone because it has had a history of significant bug damage. Like even if I disclose that, I just feel like I don't want to make this somebody else's problem. And so I don't know what to do. So if you have any thoughts on what you can do with a lot of cones of fiber, most of them are like a worsted weight and most of them feel like a rug yarn. And so part of me is like, maybe it wouldn't be so bad to want to weave a rug with these. But I just don't know. So if you have any thoughts on what I should do, I would love to hear them, because I think like I don't want this to become one of those things where I like tote around this thing of yarn forever because I can't decide what to do and don't want to throw it away because I don't want to be wasteful. But like, I just have no plan and it just haunts me a little bit. Yeah. So I believe that is it for my weaving yarn. So that means we can move on to my spinning stash. Let's talk spinning stash. So let's start with commercial comb top, hand painted, hand dyed fibers, of which I have many. A lot of this is Hello Yarn Fiber Club. I think I was signed up from like late summer of 2021 till early, maybe spring 2022. So not quite a year. It was too much fiber. I feel, with all crafts, I do them in waves. And so it was really building up and I was like, oh God, I'm falling behind and was feeling really overwhelmed. I have fortunately actually made it through a lot of the fiber. And what remains is essentially the colorways that I just don't like that much. I do feel like if I'm going to destash anything, it might be these. But as you can see, a common thread amongst all of these is that they are very purple heavy. And if there's a color I don't really like, it's purple. I mean, I don't mind purple, but there's something about like the purple yellow, purple green, purple seafoam blue combo that I like find repulsive. And that's frankly that's a me problem. That's not Adrian. Adrian has done a beautiful job dyeing this fiber. It's just that I have evidently very specific taste. I mean, just different taste, maybe not even very specific. I don't think my colorway preferences are very unique in any way, shape, or form. But I digress. So I have probably about a pound of 4 different colorways that are just like not well suited for me, that I don't really know what to do with. I did have the idea that maybe I would throw these. I would like open them all up, extract just the colors I wanted, leave the colors behind that I didn't want, and then like blend them all together on my drum carder to just make like some heathered yarns. So I might still do that, but it's hard to say if I really will. So I think they're surviving the cull this time around, but they might not next time around, if you know what I mean. Onto fiber that I do really like, and I'm grateful to own, is a few other things from Hello Yarn. I have this from a recent destash. It's just this nice kind of dark greeny yellow-green grello. Very fitting, very into that. I also got this beautiful patchwork kit. So if you don't know, Adrian Hello Yarn does these surprise patchwork kit updates where I think she kind of just takes like bits of leftover fiber from like dyeing club or dyeing coordinates and then throws them into these like 1 pound ensembles. It's like these lovely browns, these lovely kind of rusty, earthy colors, but then there's like this crazy like neon green. And I want to make like a 3-way gradient where like maybe it starts dark brown, shifts into like this reddish color, like the red yellows, and then into these lighter tans. We'll see. We'll see. But yeah, I would really like to actually make a video on my process with this because I kind of want to do it in a more strategic way, because with the blue to yellowish gradient that I made for that weaving, I kind of eyeballed everything. And I'm really happy with the way it turned out. But I feel like if I'm trying to make sure like they're all really heathered in a way that I like and that it's like a true gradient, I think there's going to be some like weighing of fiber and math involved. And so would love to document my process on that. Don't know realistically when I'm actually going to get around to doing this. I don't know if this will be in Tour de Fleece this year, maybe Tour de Fleece next year, but I would really like, that's on my list, my ongoing list of video ideas. So really looking forward to making that video though. But yeah, I love this and so excited to work with it. So that's everything I think on the Hello Yarn front. I have a couple of random things. This is just a braid that I have. I do believe this is from Neighborhood Fiber Company, which is based out of Baltimore, so local to me. I believe I got this at Maryland Sheep and Wool a couple years, maybe 2023, Maryland Sheep and Wool. Because actually I was spinning yarn for this sweater, actually that's behind me, for the contrast color, for the color work, and I ran out. And so I was like, and the fiber I had spun was like a one of a kind kind of thing, or like was a part of one shop update, has not been re-dyed. And so I was like, what would be nice to like make a gradient with? And ultimately I went with a different fiber, but I had bought this as a contender. And it's nice. It's just like a nice warm golden yellow. I love my tonals and semi-solids. And so, yes. Other random things. So I have a couple things from Inglenook Fiber Company, which is one of my other favorite. I mean, I feel like it is not, I feel like everybody and their mother loves Inglenook, and that is very rightfully so, because their colorways are, I think, unmatched. And so things that might look familiar to you, I got this set of bats late last year that I hoped to get to during Vlogtober, Vlogmas, not Vlogtober, Vlogmas, which I did not, evidently, but definitely looking forward to spinning these. I also have remnants of a bat in a braid. This was Duran's Folk, I do believe. I had spun half of this for my best friend as a birthday gift. I don't know why I didn't spin the whole thing. I think I was in a time crunch because I had to like do it, fly to California to give it to her. And so I still have half of it. And I think it would be kind of nice that she has like half, then I have half. But just haven't gotten around to spinning the rest. I will one day. I didn't really like working with it. I don't really like working with spinning merino. Like it's just like too slippery for me. And especially this like is blended with silk also. It's just like it's like running out of my hands a little bit. And so it was like a stressful experience spinning this. I'm a much more experienced spinner now. And so I think I will not have problems with this, but I did struggle with it a bit, 2 years ago. And the last thing, and maybe I'm going to go on a tangent once again, but this is perhaps the only thing that I like feel that I truly deeply regret in my stash. It is this like 100% mohair braid. I think Inglenook was having a shop update. I was feeling like, I think I like had gotten to it kind of late and was just like, ooh, but then was like feeling FOMO and was just like bought the first thing that I saw that was in a colorway that I liked. And it is this like 100% mohair braid. Like this is a nightmare to spin in any way that's not long draw. And even then, like, I don't think anybody wants 100% mohair yarn. And so I'd spun a little bit of this. It was not pretty. I think though I'm gonna save this for blending into bats for the future because it is just like a nice solid orange. So that is all of my top. I have a few other bats, but I think next I want to talk about my fleeces. So I've mentioned these fleeces a couple of times. And I think I've definitely shown this Romney fleece. But these are fleeces that I got in Maryland Sheep and Wool in 2022 and 2023, I think. Sorry if you hear some keyboard noises in the background. My partner is seemingly reamping something. But so first, let's talk about this Romney fleece, Romney cross. It's coming from a sheep named Izzy. She was an award winner the year that I got this fleece. It's so beautiful. It's like this variegated gray, light gray, dark gray, taupey almost in some parts. So beautiful, so beautiful. And I've probably worked through, all of it's washed, but in terms of actually processing into bads, I've probably worked through about 30, maybe 35% of it. I'm gonna show you here actually. I have all of my bats. So I sorted the fleece into like kind of 3 different colorways, for lack of a better word. So these were made from the darkest parts of the fleece. So I got this lovely, very warm taupey brown that I think is so nice. Because it is so nice, frankly. And then these bats are from the lightest parts of the fleece. So it's like, I wouldn't call this white. I would call this very much so solidly in the gray family. but it is like, you know, very nice. It's like somewhere between white and gray in a very cool, I think, interesting way. So really love what I've gotten out of this fleece so far. And this is what I call the mid-tones, where it's like things I couldn't really parse out so easily. And so I think I have about 2.5 pounds of this left to card. The other fleece I have is this Corriedale that I got. And it is also very beautiful, a lot more uniform in color. It's pretty much, like, I think it's gonna blend up to a pretty creamy white. And it is very nice. It's all washed up also. Washing this gave me a little bit more difficulty. It wasn't coated, so it's a little bit dirtier. And there's a lot of more vegetable matter, but I was thinking with this one, I might try dyeing some of it. I struggle a lot with feeling like all of this is so precious and feeling then like paralyzed in what I'm gonna do with it, because I don't wanna like do something wrong or do something I don't like, because then it feels like a waste of the material. But I'm really trying to embrace that, like, experimenting and learning how to work with it has merit in and of itself. And so, you know, and I have so much of it. Like, each of these is cumulatively, like, this is like 3.5 pounds of fleece. My Romney Cross, I think I had about 4 pounds. That is like plenty. That is like more than enough for like a quarter of it to just be like not dyed, just washed, carded, spun for a sweater quantity. And then like I could dye, you know, another quarter of it, and that's like enough for another big project. And so there's plenty of fleece to go around for me to try different things. And so I think I will. When? Hard to say, because I think, if I'm being honest, processing fleece is my least favorite fiber activity. I just like really don't have the patience for it. And I think like I just need to spend a month where I sit down at the carder for like 6 hours a day, just churning the bats out. But like that doesn't change the fact that I then have to spin them. And as you saw with that Jacob roving that I have, it is taking me forever because it's like, to me, monotonous and boring. And so if you have any tips on how to get through spinning fiber that is not super interesting to look at while you're spinning it, I would love to hear it. Because I think it's one thing to like be spinning these beautiful, like variegated braids, right? And top, but it's another to be just spinning hundreds, thousands of yards of just gray wool. I will say spinning long draw really helps, because I do feel like you can kind of zone out, but I do feel like I'm paying more attention to what I'm doing when I'm spinning long draw. But it doesn't change the fact that like I still get bored. So those are my fleeces. The last thing I just want to share is this random bag of bats that I got from a lovely local fiber friend who was doing a gentle de-stash. And also I think this is where a lot of I think I mentioned in my studio tour, I was like, I have Turkish spindles, but I have no idea where they are. They are definitively in these bags. Because I think like I brought this with me on vacation somewhere and stuck the Turkish spindle in here so that I would have it with me. So a lot of these are like no longer, like a lot of these companies don't exist anymore. I think like Hobbledehoy is not like a thing anymore. Same with, I believe, Nunoko is also not making dyeing fiber anymore for spinning. But yeah, I love these kinds of things for weaving. Because I just feel like it's right, it's just like the perfect amount to weave something small. And with these mini bats, I love doing these on Turkish spindles. And then what is it? Ply on the fly. Love doing that with these. But alas, takes forever. But I think I might get back very much so into spindle spinning, especially when I don't have access to my studio. So, whew, I think that's it. Let's take a deep breath. Let us take a sip. That was a long stash tour. Thank you so much for joining me. Would love to hear your thoughts. Yeah, I think I really felt like I didn't own that much yarn, and I think I don't on the grid, or I definitely don't own that much knitting yarn, right? Like essentially all of my knitting yarn fits in one of these half totes. But I do have so much weaving yarn, and it's funny because I feel like that does not reflect at all how much I weave, because I weave like the amount of time I spend weaving over the course of a year is like deeply insignificant compared to the time I spend knitting or spinning. But I don't know. It just, if I don't include the yarn that I got for free with that loom, it's really not that much. It's like 3 totes. It's like 3.5 totes worth of yarn. And then of course, I mean, I don't even feel like I have an outrageous amount of spinning fiber. It just takes up a lot of space. But I will say having 2 fleeces to work on is kind of an overwhelming thought, but it's not that bad. It's not that great. But I mean, I love everything. Everything in my stash, I feel like has its place. And there's only a few things that I think like wouldn't make the chopping block if I were to like do a purge. But I'm really happy with what I have, and all of it's really special and important and precious to me. And I think something I'm gonna be working on in 2025 and beyond is just a lot of this stuff sits in my stash because I'm like, as I mentioned, paralyzed by fear of doing something wrong with it, or doing something that I don't like or can't use in the way that I want to use it. And I think I'm just trying to move past that feeling and just try and experiment and fuck around and find out. Because that's, you know, there's beauty and merit in that in and of itself. So, whew, thanks so much again for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. I will see you in the next one. Bye.